I grew up in a small town in Northern California. My parents were marijuana farmers. And so there was not a lot of opportunity for me to see the outside world, to see all the other possibilities that were available for my life. And having such a limited scope at such a young age really limited my capacity when I became an adult. It wasn't until I started traveling the world with my church, building schools and churches and orphanages all over the world, that my horizons started to broaden. And I started to see what was possible. Even for me, a poor kid growing up in the drug trade, could become more than just an hourly worker punching a clock. Welcome to the Mental Health Janitors, where we help you clean up the mess in your head. I'm your host, Sgt Q, and with me today, Estyn Elan, who is a style image consultant. But she didn't start that way. She found herself in an identity crisis of her own when she picked up her entire life to move overseas for a relationship that didn't work out. And so she had to reinvent herself. Who does she want to become? And so today, not just telling us about it, but telling us the steps we need to reinvent our own life. Estyn Elan.
Hi, Sgt Q. Thanks for having me today.
It's great to have you here. I love chatting with you. We've chatted a couple times. What is the big takeaway that you want people to have when they leave this episode?
If I could give you one thing to take away with you, I would say that it's so important to know that you're not alone if you are struggling with your self-concept. According to Psychology Today, 85% of humanity is struggling with low self-esteem. So if you were to just, check in with yourself today and see, where on a scale of 1 to 10 you are feeling, how confident do you feel? How much self-respect do you have? What is your internal dialogue like? Then just think of a number. Like, where would you be at today?
And so when was that? When did you first understand this? Like, tell me when you first started to uncover this concept. Like, what were you going through?
The first time I really had the whole concept click, I was having an identity crisis in a foreign country as a new mom, to put it plainly. But I think that it took from my entire life to come to this sort of realization of how to overcome it and how to get out of that low self-image or, not liking who you are. Okay, so you probably haven't been stuck in a foreign country, as a new mom, but most people do go through identity crisis at some point in their life, right? We have all heard of the classic midlife identity crisis, but there's also a quarter life identity crisis that I've seen many people go through. And what no one really talks about is that when you become a new parent for the first time, especially if you carry your own baby and have it, then there is an identity crisis that comes right after that. And no one talks about that and how to deal with it.
So, Estyn, that is a great picture that you just painted right there. But what's the solution? What is it?
Well, self-mastery is really the solution, right? You have to master yourself, but it's kind of like how, right? Most people are super stuck in materialism and, paying their rent or getting food or finding a partner and all of these sort of lower things that don't really matter that much. And there are things that we can pull out of ourselves that can help us identify, who we are and honor and respect what we've been through and what we want and where we're going. So when we identify who we really are and then we kind of wear it, it gives other people an opportunity to identify you accordingly, like how you want to be seen. It's very powerful.
Perfect. Okay, the next piece is credibility. So give me a research study, data, somebody you've helped.
So there have been numerous professional designers out there who have had struggles with, depression, like Tom Ford or Rachel Zoe. They have talked about using fashion to create an armor or even your own image to create a layer of protection between you and external criticism, right? Because if you look good and you feel good, if you look good, you feel good, right? Everybody knows this. It's like an old adage, right? So it's hard to feel, it's hard. You can still feel bad when you look good, but it's a lot harder. So if you take the time to look good in a way that makes you feel good about yourself, then it's harder for other people's criticism to be absorbed by you. It kind of deflects where you're like, I feel really good. Hey, I look great. What are you talking about? That's your problem, right? And so that's what ends up happening is and especially it's very powerful when you pull out cues, symbols from your dreams, from your personal lineage, from your parents or your grandparents, or your favorite colors, or, your favorite movements, and you wear them, then it gives people who identify with the things that you've chosen a reason to come over and talk to you. And you already have that in common. So it's just really life-changing about how you interact with others.
All right, Estyn. So this is where we get into the part that I love the most, because we like to do three things here on the Mental Health Janitors. We educate, we empower, and we encourage people. And so give us a roadmap. What are you gonna educate us and empower us with?
So what image consultants do is educate people or advise others on appearances, behaviors, and communication skills so that you can show up with positive presence. So the presence that I like to focus on with people is professionalism, because I feel like so many people want to go out there in the world and they want to provide either for themselves or for their loved ones, and they struggle and they don't see why. And so there are blinders. Like, we don't know why. We're like, oh, they don't like me. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, an imposter. But the truth is not any of those things, right? So if you just take the blinders off and educate yourself and implement those systems, then other people don't see those kind of red flags and you get the green light to go.
Tell us a little bit deeper. Like, everybody kind of understands the concept, but you've dedicated your life to the study and the application of this. So tell us a little bit more. Let's go a little bit deeper.
Yes. So the best part for me is the transformation, like witnessing people transform from this kind of low self-esteem version of themselves into this sparkling and radiant human being who suddenly is shining with their own delight with themselves, or like self-care, self-appreciation, right? And so what I learned is that I basically put together a process based on my own experience. I have been a designer for major corporations, like Fortune 500 corporations. I have had celebrities wear all my clothes. I've seen them on billboards. I've seen them all over in film, television. I've also performed on stage and traveled a lot and observed a lot of people and studied a lot about communications. And so the whole thing that I learned is it coming down to this 7-step system that I put together. And it basically starts with a vision. You have to have a vision. And then you have to just kind of evaluate your actual person, like your daily routines and how do you wake up? How do you go to bed? How do you take care of yourself throughout the day? It has nothing to do with the clothes that you wear. It's just like in your birthday suit, like when you wake up and talk to yourself and how do you go through your routines. The third one is communications. So we want to communicate with class. A lot of people do not have or possess effective communication. It gets lost very easily, especially in this day and age where everyone wants to text or write DMs. But I'll tell you just a quick story about this step of the system is, one time I was sitting in Santa Monica and I was just having lunch by myself alone. I had been on a shopping trip and I just stopped to have a cup of tea or soup or whatever. And there were these two women sitting next to me and I just couldn't help but overhear their conversation. And they were talking about hiring someone to take care of their kids. This was two probably stay-at-home moms who manage households and need to hire people to help them. And they were talking about how one woman applied for the job, but they didn't want to work with her because she didn't speak well. And she would teach those speech skills to their children. So if you don't speak well, you don't really realize it. But things like accents or slang even can really impede on your credibility and hireability, especially depending on the kind of role that you're seeking. But so classy communications, right? Using correct communications can actually get people to do what you want them to do, and obligingly so. Okay, so the next one would be the corporate code, which is basically business etiquette, right? You can't screw up your business etiquette. You need to know the rules of engagement and what's expected of professionals in a professional environment. The fifth one is your industry image, and that is, identifying what industry you work in or what industry you are called to work in, and what are the standards there. There is, generally speaking, there's business casual, there's business professional, and there's business formal. So you need to know which one is the one that you need to focus on, and what are the situations where you might need to shift into something else, right? And what is the point? What is the point of the meeting or the work? What is the outcome that you desire? And so it's a lot like, if you're in a movie and the movie is your life and you are the star, right? What is the costume that you need to be wearing to earn the Oscar, right? To have the success, to have the climactic time of life, or to just be successful in your movie of life about you, right? And then after that, we move into personal branding, which is, identifying the colors that would suit you best, because there is science to it. And science says that colors affect the way that we feel. Colors are affected by the colors around us, and color enhances the energy of a person. So, the colors that you wear have an influence on the outcome of your engagements, right? So it's big, right? And then you have natural coloring in there, and you can find out what it is and what looks good. So it's really nice to see people when they discover their best color, because there's almost always a surprise involved, and then people like light up and they're like, "Oh, it looks so good." Right? Guys too, right? This is just for anybody. And then finally, we look at leadership styles. So, do you need more authority? Do you need to be projecting more authority, or do you need to be projecting more affiliation, like attractiveness? And so people can get really out of balance with their authority or with their attractiveness, right? Where it's like, I don't want to work with her because she's too attractive, right? She's got her skirts too short. It's going to be too much of a distraction at work, right? These things can get in the way of if somebody wants to sign up to work with you, or if you're, yelling at people. So we look at body type, we look at face type and natural characteristics, and how to create more harmony. So, there's like that old Hermetic principle or universal principle, as above, so below. So you really just look at, what's there and how you can create more visual harmony. And it's very powerful. Like, this is what people from around, like world leaders, use to identify the right styles and colors and choices for themselves. And once you have it, it doesn't change. Like, your bone structure is not going to change tomorrow, right? So it's very powerful, and it's very science-based, and it's just very amazing to watch people go through this process.
It sounds like a full transformation. And there's actually a story that you tell about that, which I'm fully understanding now. It's the story of the butterfly.
Yes.
And so I'm hoping you're going to share with the audience that story. But first, I want to go back just a moment to the story you told about classy communication. And I try to tell people this all of the time. You have to play the part that you're in. And so it depends on where you're at, depends on how you're going to operate. Now, that doesn't mean you change who you are. It just changes how you operate. A lot of times people try to find the right time and the right place to get things to line up. And I tell them, you're going to wear yourself out. Focus on being the right person, and then God will arrange the right time and place. And so as you were telling that story about communication, it just reminded me of that, which I look at your whole system that you have here, and what you're trying to help people focus on is being the right person for the role in which they're called to play. And I think that is so cool, because nobody really even thinks about that, myself included. Until you just started talking about it, I wasn't even thinking in that. Now, operating in that, but I wasn't thinking about it on the level in which you discussed it. And so I'm sure there's a lot of our audience in the same boat right now, where we're for the first time starting to see what you're talking about, and we have no idea what to do with it. But I know that you came today with a tool that we can all use to help us on this journey. So tell us a little bit about what you brought for us today, Estyn.
Yes, of course. So I always like to start with the compass of life direction. And it's basically a wheel, and it has seven aspects of life, such as confidence, communications, finances, career, relationship, health. I don't know what the last one is, but you'll see it on the wheel. And basically what you do is the wheel is like a grid from the inside out. And so if the inside would be number 1 and the outside would be 10. And so you fill it out like it's shaped like a pie for each section. And you just fill out how satisfied you are in each area of life on a scale of 1 to 10. And then once you've filled it in, you can see very clearly where the areas are that you need to be focusing on. And it's interesting because a lot of people sort of know what they should be doing, but they tend to ignore it. And so what's great about the Compass of Life Direction is that it really pinpoints exactly where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. And sometimes you might be in a place where everything's just weak, you know, and you don't know where to start. And that's when, it really does help to have some professional help to get your bubble back bigger and more balanced. But the idea is that it should be balanced and it should be full. So you can start with the Compass of Life Direction and see what you should be working on today, where you should be putting in a little bit of extra time or energy, and put it on your calendar. You need to have a financial Friday, or, you need to work on your social skills so you can improve your relationships. There's a great tool to just get started and see and assess where you're at right now.
That's awesome, Estyn. That is a great tool. And so I know this tool. We use it. We call it the wheel of life, but it's the exact same tool. And so I know exactly what it is. And you were right. It is so powerful when people do that exercise, fill that out, and they get to see it for the first time. And so now I know there are people who are hearing this for the first time. They've just been educated. You've given this great tool, which I know is super powerful. But we always want to do a third thing here. We want to encourage people to take the next step. So what would be the next step for people? They've heard us talk. They're going to use this free tool. What's the next step?
The next step would be to book a free consultation with me online. It's like a 30-minute virtual coffee where we can talk about your wheel and see what's the next step for you. So I do offer one-on-one consultations where we do a lot of deep work, and it's very intense and in-depth, and it's life-changing. But for people who have, shorter time or money at this point in time but want to get started, they can start with the online course right away. There's all kinds of workshops. It's a 7-step course. We go through all of those things in detail. And then there are worksheets you can print out and fill out so that you have your own guide right there.
Perfect. So the next step is to book a call or go directly into
the website. Start with the course right away. Or you can book the call and I can help you set it up however you like.
Fantastic. All right. So this is the part where you tell one last story. It's kind of your closing story. You wrap everything together, being able to see the future success that they're looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was working with one woman who I'll just call her Anne. It's not her real name. But she was going through a divorce. She had 2 young girls and she was trying to figure out what to do with her life. She had gained a bunch of weight, so she wasn't feeling very confident. And she had a lot of court appointments that were very expensive, and she didn't have a regular job. And so I just worked with her and listened to her educational background and her interests. And it turned out that she really wanted to be a preschool teacher, and she had a degree in childcare. And so I had met her because our daughters have been in the same school. And so I worked with her and we built up her look and her confidence. And then she walked into the school and asked them for a job and they gave it to her. And suddenly she was putting in her educational experience that she had never used before, right? She was an esthetician, but she had like a license for esthetician, but she hadn't studied it in school like she had studied childcare education. So we kind of course corrected for her, right? She got on the path that she had truly set out to be on, and then she kind of got detoured. And so the beautiful part was watching her suddenly be posting pictures where she was following the guidance that I had given her and happy and smiling. And then I would hear from her months later about how well she was doing. And so it was very powerful. It's very satisfying work for me to see people go through these total transformations. Another girl I worked with, she she was working in corporate job and she wanted to step out of her corporate role and into her own consulting practice. But what was so interesting about working with her was, first of all of her colors were not in harmony with her. So they were sort of speaking, it was like disjointed, right? So she was posting online and trying to promote her business, which the message was there, but visually, the visual communications was disjointed. So it wasn't helping her. And so we worked together and we pulled all the information out of her and we built this beautiful, brand for her. And she totally launched her business, did the ribbon cutting ceremony, had the photos taken, and was able to go and book herself as a speaker, which was what she really turned out. She was like, oh, I don't know why I've been working on these corporate consulting packages when really what I want to be doing is speaking. And that's what we figured out. It's like, you know, your people get so caught up on these lower vibrational activities of must have, must provide, that we forget why we're really here. But that information is living within us. And so it's just, I can't, words don't express how satisfying it is to correct people's courses because of the shine factor that starts coming out of them later, where they're just always happy and smiling because they're constantly working towards their purpose and it's very fulfilling. So it's just like, a ripple effect.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Estyn. These 7 steps are so crucial. I learned a lot today. So thank you so much. Because we want to do 3 things. We want to educate, empower, and encourage people. And I think you absolutely nailed it. So for the Mental Health Janitors, I'm Sgt Q, and I'm out.